This October, people from across the country will descend on Atlantic City for the American Shore and Beach Preservation Association Conference. It's the 100th anniversary of the conference and the ASBPA, which actually started here in New Jersey in Long Branch. Now, for this episode of Tidal Flooding Talk, we're going back to the archives with the executive director of the ASBPA, Dr. Nicole Elko, who is based in South Carolina. She talks to us about the history of beach replenishment, which feels more real than maybe in past couple of years after Congress zeroed out funding for beach replenishment in 2026. Now, since that has happened, United States Representative Jeff Van Drew secured $99 million for New Jersey beach fills from the Army Corps of Engineering. Now, these were projects that were already slated to occur, but were discontinued after the congressionally directed spending ended in 2025. So we're looking forward to showing you this archive from last year, 2025, with Dr. Nicole Elko of the ASBPA here on Tidal Flooding Talk. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Tidal Flooding Talk, brought to you by the New Jersey Coastal Coalition in partnership with our broadcast partner at Tri-X57. I am Joe Martucci. We have Dan Skeldon here. We have Palma Shiles here. We have our guest, Dr. Nicole Elko, here. We'll introduce her in just a minute or two. But TFT crew, summer as we know it is over. Local summer is here. And I have to say, you know, given the way early September looks, it's going to be quite nice for some early September beach, right, Dan?
It should be a quiet Labor Day weekend in terms of the tropics, which is always a good thing, especially after Erin, gave us a pounding the week before. So obviously we hope for a quiet peak of hurricane season, and for a lot of locals, it's their favorite time of year. September, October, best time of the year at the shore.
I think every year,
Palma, someone who,
I think every year we say that summer flew by, but for whatever reason, I think that was especially the case for me, at least this year. I cannot believe that it's already September.
Yeah, me neither. I've been saying so I was gone, as if you guys watch Tidal Flooding Talk, I was gone for 3 weeks away from New Jersey. I was in Scotland and Ireland for 2 of them, so it's not necessarily the warmest there. So coming back, it kind of felt like I kind of just jumped into the middle of summer and I forgot all about the early part. So I agree with you, Palma. This summer has felt especially quick to me. Last summer actually felt long, which was nice. Maybe this is a good time to bring on our guest, Dr. Nicole Elko. She is based in Charleston, South Carolina, and is the executive director of the American Shore and Beach Preservation Association. The ASBPA has been around since 1926 and is focused on preserving, protecting, and enhancing our coasts by merging science and public policy. Plus, it was founded right here in our Tidal Flooding Talk home territory in Asbury Park. We're going to welcome Dr. Elko onto the show. You're in South Carolina, so summer hangs on for a while, but did summer go by fast for you, Dr. Elko?
It did. Our kids start school in the second week of August, so we're in full not summer anymore mode.
I still can't. I know most of the country goes back to school in August. I still can't wrap my head around it. We always go back to school after Labor Day. My thought isn't August? I mean, August is hotter than June. Wouldn't it make more sense to start school after Labor Day? I don't know.
Yes, it would.
Yeah. Well, we can't figure that out, but we can talk about our topic for today, which is the history of beach replenishment here at the Jersey Shore. As president of the ASBPA, and being here in New Jersey, I think it's a good mesh for us here. But my first question for you and for our listeners is, what types of members are in the ASBPA? Are they government members, public, companies, private companies? What do we have?
question. Great question. So we represent over 1,000 members around the globe, actually. Most of them are based in or have some relation with beachfront or coastal communities. We really got our start, as you mentioned, in New Jersey, addressing beach erosion challenges. Back in 1926, believe it or not, that's when the beaches were just starting to get developed. And we worked with the Army Corps of Engineers and Congress to establish what is today's federal beach renourishment program. So we've been doing that very same thing pretty consistently now for about 100 years. And our members are those stakeholders that benefit from those projects. So communities and the practitioners that support beachfront and coastal communities.
So Nicole, what kind of programs does the ASBPA have in place during the year?
Yep, we have a kind of a technical side of the organization and then a policy side. So our technical arm, for example, tracks beach renourishment projects nationwide. We can tell you that, hey, Asbury Park, you're not alone. 87 other communities nationwide in the US are also restoring their beaches, and we placed 1.8 billion cubic yards of sand on our beaches over the last century. So we track technical items like that. We attempt to get that type of information into the hands of our members. We're not educating the general public like y'all are at the station. We leave that good work up to you all. We're getting the technical information over to the managers, the decision makers, both in Washington, D.C. and at the local level on the beaches.
Now, how important is it to have partnerships between, towns and then up to state and federal agencies?
Yeah, that's kind of the foundation of our organization is that, beach towns are generally small places to work, right? A city hall in a beach town might only have 10 or 15 people working there. Sure, they have tens of thousands of tourists coming and going, but a lot of times the person who's charged with managing the beaches is also the public works director, and they're doing 15 other things. So it takes an organization like ours to assist. And like I said, let them know that there are communities around the nation dealing with exactly the same struggles, whether it's tidal flooding or beach erosion.
Yeah, all great. And, kind of like you touched on here at the New Jersey Coastal Coalition, I mean, we help the local towns. We're focused on the municipalities because we all know, Dan Palma and I, people personally who are, might be town administrator, but also emergency manager, as well at the same time. And there's just, so many people and the resources are stretched thin, and especially for us here in New Jersey, right? I mean, during the winter, it's just so quiet here for most of the shore. I know it's a little bit different down in South Carolina, especially points south, but, there really is that huge seasonal difference here. I do want to talk about, New Jersey a little bit because, like you said, it started in New Jersey. By my count, you had your annual conference several different times, 1941, 47, 52, 57, 69, 2 years in the 90s, and then 2 times in the 2000s, most recently in 2016 in Long Branch. So two-part question for you. Tell us the relationship between the ASBPA in New Jersey specifically, and then also 100th anniversary next year. Are we thinking about having the conference in New Jersey next year? And can we get any insight as to where?
Absolutely. Yes, so we have attempted to come back, at least during the era that I've been involved with the organization over the last few decades, to return to Jersey with every decadal celebration. So we were there for our 80th and our 90th. I remember those two. And yes, spoiler alert, we are coming back next year. We are so excited.
All right.
Our organization has grown substantially. We used to be small enough where maybe we could meet in Cape May, maybe Wildwood, but we are big enough now that Atlantic City is pretty much our main option. So we are planning on utilizing the big, beautiful meeting space at the Hard Rock in Atlantic City next October. So over a year from now, but October 2026.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Hard Rock, we have the New Jersey Emergency Management Association there. Hard Rock's great. I'm assuming, based on the way you're talking, you've been to Atlantic City before.
Yes, I have. Recently, to scope out conference space.
Okay, so what else do you like about Atlantic City? What else do you do in Atlantic City when you're not at the conference? We're curious. This is all people who spent a lot of time in the city.
Oh, she's playing, she's playing roulette.
She might be, but I don't know. We got pizza. We got the beach bars. We got. I mean, I don't know. You tell us. What else? What is Nicole Elko doing in Atlantic City after or before the conference?
Well, as you might guess from my backdrop, the first thing I'll be doing is seeing if there are any waves. But if not,
okay,
then we'll be really enjoying the beaches out there. The nice thing about the boardwalk is all of the access, right? You can get onto the beach so easily. We can set our foot on federal beach nourishment projects. So we like to dork out on stuff like that. It's hard for people like me to just go to the beach and chill and not think about a dune restoration project or which way is the sediment transport offshore right now. So yeah, we'll be enjoying the beach in all forms, whether we're in the water or up there on the sand.
And Nicole,
is the fact that the Atlantic City beach. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
No, go ahead, Joe.
Go ahead, Dan. No, I was just gonna make a little joke. I was just saying, is the fact that the beaches are free in Atlantic City have any role in that?
That is a good perk for us. The public access question is one that's coming up a lot these days.
Awesome. Go ahead, Dan. I'm sorry.
No, I'll wait for the next segment.
Well, I
okay.
live.
All right. Well, we're gonna take it.
I live in Atlantic City,
Go ahead,
and
Paul, finish it.
I will say that the beaches are. I love the Atlantic City beaches. So have fun when you come here.
Awesome. We're going to take it. We'll take a break now. We'll come back on the other side, and we will talk about the history of beach replenishment here in New Jersey on Tidal Flooding Talk. Base flood elevation is the level floodwaters are expected to reach in a major storm. Building below it puts your home at risk. Building just 1 foot above it can significantly lower flood insurance costs and reduce flood damage. And don't forget to elevate mechanical equipment like air conditioners and generators. Small changes can make a big difference. This message is brought to you by the New Jersey Coastal Coalition.
Back to this week's Tidal Flooding Talk post-Labor Day here. Meteorological fall has begun with our co-host Paul Michiles, Joe Martucci. I'm Dan Skeldon, joined by our guest this week, Dr. Nicole Elko from the American Shore and Beach Preservation Association. Going to focus this segment, Nicole, on beach erosion. Something is the foundation for what you're battling all the time. I want to talk just a little bit. I mean, everyone who lives in New Jersey, probably knows what it is, but a little just background on, what is it and, why are we always battling it?
Sure. So beach erosion is one of the biggest challenges for beachfront and coastal communities nationwide. And the challenge is that many coastal settings are so highly modified now. They were kind of, let's call them the mistakes of our forefathers, right? We're not going to blame anyone in charge today, but those of us that work on managing the beaches, we were handed this coastal system, and maybe it's a little bit broken. Maybe the sediment isn't reaching the beaches like it would if everything was completely natural. And for that reason, we need to worry about beach erosion, right? If our beaches erode, 3 really bad things will happen. Number 1, our economies will tank, right? People aren't going out to the beach communities to work in a textile mill. It's the industry is tourism, right? So that the beaches drive the economy. Secondly, we won't have any storm protection. You just saw the passage of Hurricane Erin and what that did. Imagine if all you had was a seawall out in front of your community. The waves would be impacting the infrastructure. So I like to say when a hurricane is approaching, you want as much sand between you and the ocean as possible. You want those storm waves breaking on the sandbar and on the beach. That's what it's there for, and not on your town. And then third, you wouldn't have that critical habitat. I'm down here in South Carolina. Nesting sea turtles are very important. Different types of wildlife utilize beaches nationwide. And so that environmental impact is really important too.
Now, what is your experience with the officials that you work with and their knowledge of beach erosion?
They kind of get what I just said, right? That the beach is really important, right? Exactly the technical aspect behind it of how fast it's eroding and more important, what we should do to address beach erosion. That's where practitioners like myself and those in our organization often come into play to work on the solutions to beach erosion.
Got it. And Dr. Elko, so just getting into New Jersey, right? I believe on your website, you say that New Jersey was the first state to understand that beach erosion was a serious issue back in the 1920s. What do you know about those early conversations back at that time? And what really drove those conversations?
Yes, well, the same thing we're talking about today. Beach erosion drove those conversations. So the Jersey coast was the first coastline to be developed, right? It was accessible from New York City. It still is. And so therefore it was the first to erode because we really didn't know what we were doing development-wise back then, right? Bulldoze a dune, build a hotel, sure, why not? That makes sense. Not so much, right? So beach erosion, it was an issue in Jersey before it was in many other places. And therefore it was the first place where the governor actually convened a group of 16 different coastal states, all came on the invitation of the New Jersey governor to this meeting in 1926 to discuss the need for the federal government to get involved in the management of beaches. And they were successful in getting the first federal beach erosion study conducted in New Jersey.
Dr. Elko, how, so it started in Jersey like a long time ago, about 100 years ago. Even today, there's both sides, right? There's people that see the need for this, see why the beach replenishment is necessary, why we have to combat erosion, and then there are the naysayers who say, okay, we're just throwing money for sand to be washed back out to sea. How do you sell it to those naysayers, like what you do and the importance of combating erosion and the importance of beach replenishment for coastal communities?
Right, it's all about the return on investment. Yes, beach nourishment is expensive. It costs millions of dollars to restore our beaches, but the tourism economy in New Jersey alone is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So you have to invest in any industry that's going to give you a return. And honestly, when we do the math, the return on investment for beach nourishment is a no-brainer. It's, pennies on the dollar that we're investing to put sand on the beach to protect that, it's very expensive infrastructure along the coast and also drive a tourism economy. So you get a double bang for your buck.
Now, how would you compare beach replenishment efforts here in Jersey compared to other places that you work with?
Yeah, great question. So New Jersey is actually, and we've done a technical analysis on that question, so I have a great answer for you. New Jersey is actually the most productive state when it comes to beach nourishment. So what does that mean? California and Florida put more sand on their beaches. Well, of course they do. They have way more coastline than Jersey, right? But when you look at it from the aspect of, if you kind of normalize the data for shoreline length, you are actually the most productive state. So you put more sand on your beaches per foot than any other state in the union.
Wow, interesting. Comparing beach replenishment now to the 1920s and 30s, what's the difference on the construction or engineering side of that? What did beach replenishment look like then? And then how do you compare that to what it looks like now?
Yeah, great question. So the very first beach nourishment project was actually on Coney Island in 1923, before ASBPA was formed. And that was, of course, one of the first beaches to be established. So, of course, as I mentioned, big erosion problems. And if you look at pictures of that first renourishment, there are some similarities. There's a pipe on the beach. There's a bulldozer. There's sand and water squirting out of a pipe. So that part is similar, but the so much has changed in terms of our knowledge of where to get the sand, what type of sand we should use, when to do the project, and how to be most efficient, or how to preserve the most sand. We were, back then we didn't know what we were doing. We would just say, oh well, we need to create some land on the marsh side of our community. Let's just dig up this mud so that we have a nice basin for this marina and put it out there on the beach. Well, the type of sand you put out there, it turns out, is actually very important. So the science and the engineering has evolved considerably over the last century.
Dr. Elko, I mean, so that's the past. Can we look ahead to the future? And I mean, do you have an inkling as to what it will look like 50 to 100 years from now? Can technology change to evolve it once more?
Right. Well, I imagine that the premise will remain relatively similar because we do have a lot of new technologies that are helping manage beach erosion nowadays. But the one thing that hasn't changed is the basic ingredient remains sand. So we can put up sand fencing and plant vegetation to build dunes. So dune restoration is now very important, we know. But without the sand blowing onto those features, the dunes aren't going to build, right? You can build we call them groins. They're the little jetties you see along the beach. They'll slow down erosion and trap sand if there's sand. So I do believe that the beach nourishment element will remain to continue feeding a source of sand to our beaches, and then the innovations will come in sort of these ways to capture the sand, slow it down, and keep it on the beach.
Good stuff. We're going to take our final break here. We'll come back on the other side. You're listening to Tidal Flooding Talk. Thanks to the New Jersey Coastal Coalition, your flood insurance bills are lower and your streets safer from the reality of flooding. Since beginning in 2013, we build more resilient shoreline communities. Our member towns develop and share in best practices that anticipate future concerns and create flooding solutions. From our town-specific free web app for flooding information to our weekly Tidal Flooding Talk show, we focus on flooding 24/7. Visit www.njcoastalcoalition.com for more.
Hello and welcome back.
You're
You
good.
are watching Flooding Talk, and we are brought to you by the New Jersey Coastal Coalition and Triax 57. So we would like to remind our viewers to protect our beaches. When we take care of our shorelines, it takes care of us. Healthy beaches, dunes, and marshes help absorb storm energy, reduce flooding, and keep our communities stronger in the face of rising seas.
Awesome. And we're continuing our conversation with Dr. Nicole Elko from the ASBPA. Here in New Jersey, we know there's always a few towns that are beach erosion hotspots. North Wildwood being one of them, the north end of Ocean City being another one of them. From a 30,000 foot view, are there certain parts of barrier islands that get more beach erosion than others, or what kind of ocean conditions would bring more beach erosion than others?
Yeah, good question, Joe. The general principle is that the closer you are to a tidal inlet or an opening, the more dynamic the beach will be. So, you have a lot of inlets along the Jersey Shore, and those really do control beach erosion or beach dynamics, I should say. You're going to have a less stable environment around inlets. So that's one thing that you can be on the lookout for. And another is sort of how far out the beach is sort of prominent into the ocean, right? You can imagine a cape or something that's sort of sticking out into the ocean, a headland that's really going to concentrate wave energy. And those are some of the coastal geology forcings that are controlling the beach erosion patterns in the Jersey Shore.
And then how does that change for towns that aren't barrier islands? We have some of those in New Jersey, Long Branch being one of them, Asbury Park being another one of them, places that the ASBPA historically goes way back with.
That's right. Yeah. So those types of beaches can oftentimes be more stable. But of course, it depends on a variety of features. We have a similar situation here in South Carolina where the Grand Strand of Myrtle Beach, most people have heard of that, is one of these headland attached beaches. So there's no bay behind it. Whereas I'm down here in the low country of South Carolina in Charleston area, and we have barrier islands that are, they're moving around a lot more just because they kind of have that space to breathe in and out.
Dr. Elko, I'd like to kind of widen the scope from Jersey to nationally. How does the West Coast differ, like in terms of beach erosion? We're talking off camera, and I know you said a lot of the replenishment projects take place along the Gulf Coast and the East Coast, which kind of makes sense. We're familiar with it with the New Jersey Coastal Coalition, the frequency of nor'easters and tropical systems here, and not so much out west. But does the West Coast have to deal with beach erosion too? And is that a problem farther west?
It is, yes. So the challenges, of course, are different on the West Coast due to just the difference in the coastal setting. It's a leading edge coast versus a trailing edge coast here, if you're looking at kind of the really big picture of plate tectonics. So they have a lot more cliffs and rocky coastlines on the West Coast. But Southern California has actually been a big player in ASBPA and the National Coastal Erosion conversation for a really long time. In fact, many of the early renourishment projects, after sort of the flux in Jersey and New York, California started sort of like catching up to them because California was dredging a lot of their harbors in Southern California. Long Beach, for example, is a good example around San Diego, Los Angeles. So all these harbors were being dredged, and it made sense to just throw the sand out on the beaches because that was a good place to get rid of the sediment. Little did they know they were doing a great service for the communities out there that were yet to be created. And so that practice of dredging a harbor or a port channel and then taking the good sand and putting it on beaches is still utilized today. A great lesson that we learned from Southern California back in the 40s and 50s.
You had mentioned earlier that times have changed significantly from when your association was first founded in terms of like where you can build, what you can do, and things like that. So does your association are you ever part of the conversation of codes changing or FEMA's standards changing?
We are. We work with our partners at the Coastal States Organization. A lot of times the coastal construction regulations start at the state level, and then communities will often step up and make their regulations even more strict, where there might be a state setback line that's kind of controlling development on the coastline, and then a community that we work with might step in and say, you know what, we're gonna add an additional 10 or 40 feet to make sure that we are having responsible beachfront development and being really proactive with our land management.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Elko, thanks so much for this great conversation. We've been wanting to do something on the history of beach replenishment in New Jersey, and you did that and even talk to us even beyond that. Before we get into the one thing we can't stop talking about, can you tell us where people can find out more about your work as well as what's going on with the ASBPA?
We would love to. So I hope that you will look us up online at asbpa.org. We're also on social media and we'll share those links. In fact, we just had a national beach sweep, our first ever that we did in several locations around the country, and Asbury Park was one of them that we did back in August. So look for some of that. Maybe it's a couple weeks old now on social media, but we're really trying to get into the communities and do some more outreach.
Awesome. Okay. Well, let's get into it. It's our one thing we can't stop talking about, tidal flooding or otherwise. I could start off with this one here. We talked about this off camera, but the sand at the Jersey Shore differs depending on where you are, and we have that like north central South Jersey divide. We all know that here if you're in New Jersey. But once you get to LBI on South, that sand is definitely more powdery and more fine than when you go from Seaside Heights on north up to Sandy Hook. I have to say personally, I like the northern sand. I like that coarse sand. I think most people like that fine sand. But to me, that fine sand feels like someone just slapped on velour slippers on me, and I can't stand velour. And neither can my sister, actually, funny enough. We both have some kind of aversion to it. So I love South Jersey Shore. I have many great friends. I love being on the beach there with shoes on. But, I take my shoes off. That's when it gets a little different there. So that's what I got. Dan, what's going on?
Maybe sand preference is genetic. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe
I don't know.
I don't know. I was going to say it's after Labor Day, and I've been very good and patient. And, I don't do Christmas till after Halloween. I don't do pumpkin spice till after Labor Day. So I'm very anxious. Can't stop talking about getting my first pumpkin spice latte of the season. So it's officially September, and that's what I'm looking forward to.
Mama?
Well, first of all, Joe, you always have the hot take of
I know
the conversation here, but anyway,
that's why I'm here.
it's funny with this episode, talking about the beach so much makes me want to go to the beach. But then, just like Dan was saying, I've been very excited for the fall and Halloween and everything like that. So I would just say now I am, it's bittersweet to see summer end. And I think we can get a few more beach days in there before it really starts getting cold.
I won't drink anything pumpkin spice, and that includes beer, until I can't go to the beach anymore. So I got a few more weeks under me. But I am about
deadline, you know, it's okay.
That's correct. Dr. Elko, we'll end it off with you.
Okay, great. Yeah, this is actually what I refer to as the most wonderful time of the year, because kids are back in school, summer is over, so tourists are gone, and hurricanes are sometimes treating us well and doing what they did with Hurricane Erin and sending some very nice waves to the shoreline. So it's a great time for surfing if you live in the Southeast. Some hurricane swell seems to be trickling in every once in a while. So I am very excited about September, and I try to never travel during September because we tend to get some decent waves here.
Dr. Elko, that was my one question from earlier, and Joe, I promise I'll be quick. How is the surfing culture in South Carolina? Like Jersey, there's a pretty cult following up and down the Jersey Shore with surfing. How is it down there?
It's much more robust than you might imagine. I actually live on Folly Beach, and we have an iconic surf spot here, the Washout. And in my free time, I actually run an all-girls surf contest called the Folly Beach Wahine Classic that's been going on for 23 years. So really vibrant surf culture here in Charleston area.
Ah, awesome. I'm looking it up it actually came up. I was typing it in on Bing here, and it popped up before it even, I typed everything in. So that's awesome. You can go check that. I think it's follywahine.com. Is that the website?
You got it. Yes.
Awesome. So you can check that out. All right. Well, thank you to our guest, Dr. Nicole Elko, for this really good conversation. We really appreciate it. We'll have new episodes of Tidal Flooding Talk every Tuesday as we keep going. We have guests scheduled all the way until mid-November at this point. So we are rocking and rolling. For Dan, Palma, I'm Joe Martucci. Thank you for listening to Tidal Flooding Talk. We'll be back with you next week.